What is going on, FA Nation? John and Pepe here with Keith Eichster. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS Playbook Live Show. We are looking at the Tuesday 10-game main slate over on DraftKings. Keith did our playbook today. You can find that live over on Fantasy Alarm. So there's no better man to have on with us here today to break down today's main slate. 10 games, Coors Field on this slate. Some really good pitching after some not so great options for us to weave our way through yesterday. All of the chalk essentially failed us from, Flaherty, Blanco, and Dustin May all had like average to below average starts. If you threw Sagano out there, you got like career high 8 strikeouts, out of him. JP Sears looked good. So I'm happy to have the likes of Garrett Crochet, Freddie Peralta, Logan Webb, Jacob deGrom, Nick Pivetta, some good options for us to sink our teeth into here today, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely loaded at the top for pitching today. Even some good mid-range options and maybe one sneaky cheap option that we'll talk about as well. Loaded pitching slate. We've got Coors on the slate. The Braves back in Coors Field, so that's going to be a popular spot, obviously. But nice slate, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything indeed. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Kobe Conway saying, let's go. Lou Bruce saying, what's up? And Eric Anderson saying, game time. If you guys got comments, throw them in the chat. Happy to bring them up on screen. We'll answer your lineup and betting questions. If you're new to the show, welcome in. Hit that like, that share, and that subscribe button. It's a free way to support the work we do here over at Fantasy Alarm. We go position by position, and then we build a lineup at the end of the show. So make sure you stay to the end to get our lineup for the day. All right, Keith, let's just kind of dive into this with 10 games to talk about. Crochet versus Toronto, Peralta versus the White Sox, Logan Webb, Nick Pivetta, and Jacob deGrom are your top 5 priced starting pitchers. When it comes to the top 2, you have Crochet, who's been a little shaky. I'll say the walks have certainly been maybe a little bit of a problem we didn't expect to see out of him earlier this year. And then Peralta gets that White Sox matchup. Peralta is the higher owned of the 2. Does that make Crochet more appealing, or are you just riding this Peralta White Sox matchup?
I think the matchup is so drastically different that I still lean to Peralta, even with the ownership number. I think he should be higher owned than Crochet in this spot. Crochet is a better pitcher long-term, in my opinion. The walks are concerning, like you mentioned. Last year, he was down around 5.5% walks. This year, he's up over 10. Yeah. And the strikeouts are down a little bit, too. Still elite at like 29.5%. But those walks are just causing him to be a little bit less efficient than he was last season. And then you factor in the matchup against Toronto, who is one of the lowest strikeout teams in all of baseball, down around 19% for the season. Not that Crochet can't still go out and strike out 10. He has some of the best stuff in baseball. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Just him being the highest priced pitcher on the slate with Peralta in an absolutely elite matchup right below him. And we'll talk about the other guys in this range too, because there's more coming. I will have some exposure to Crochet just because, like I said, he can go out there and strike 10 or 12 out in any matchup. But I do prefer Peralta, even considering the ownership.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Crochet that has like some just like slight appeal is actually the Blue Jays lineup today. They have Dalton Varsho back in their lineup. Varsho is like a high strikeout guy, and he's hitting 6th. He's a lefty bat too as well. So while the rest of that lineup certainly is maybe starting to come around, we've seen Santander start to get some hits, and we know that there's some guys, like you said, that don't really strike out. Adding someone like Varsho in the bottom of that lineup is certainly a bit weaker. Ernie Clement's there. They moved Jimenez down to 8 because he was never going to sustain the hot start that he had, and then Miles Straw is hitting 9. So, once he gets through the middle of that order, there's some easy outs down there at the bottom if he can just be efficient enough. So in tournaments today, and I kind of shared a lineup build that I had with you in our Slack channel, Crochet at like 10-11% today. Great for tournaments. Chalky, Peralta. But then you have Logan Webb and Nick Pivetta going up against one another. Thoughts here? Pivetta has a slight ownership advantage over Webb today, a couple of percentage points. Do you have a lean in that matchup one way or the other?
Both of these guys have been just absolutely awesome this year. You can make an argument they've been 2 of the best pitchers in baseball. Webb has long been an elite real-life pitcher. The strikeouts have never been there. He's been around 22% for his career. This season, he's up over 30%. So when I first opened the slate and saw Logan Webb at that price, I'm like, man, this is going to be the tournament pivot of the day. Digging in a little bit, I'm not quite buying the strikeouts. His swinging strike rate is pretty much in line with his career, where he's been, I said, a slightly below average strikeout pitcher. So he's an elite option. He still has upside because he can easily get through 7 innings, even against the Padres. He keeps the ball on the ground. He's an elite run prevention guy. So
only 1 homer allowed this year, so.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely elite pitcher. I'm just not buying 30% strikeouts from Logan Webb.
Sure.
So if you put him down in the 22, 23% range that he's been in for his career, Pivetta might have the more upside for me. Has been a well above average strikeout pitcher for several seasons now. The ballpark shift, moving from Fenway Park the last 4 years, which is a terrible fit for his skill set, to Petco Park, which now fits his skill set pretty well. Just right-handed power in Boston always gave him problems. He's a fly ball pitcher. Never a fit that made sense for him. Going out to Petco, I think that what we're seeing from him is sustainable. Maybe not, obviously not a less than 2 ERA the entire season. He's an upper end of the rotation guy. Given his strikeout ability, the fly balls that won't be leaving the yard as often. Pivetta is a guy that I'm excited about in San Diego. So it's a slight lean to Pivetta for me. It's not a strong take. Webb is probably a better pitcher. It's DFS upside for me. I think Pivetta has more strikeout upside.
Yeah, strikeouts are king, especially on DraftKings, right? Where they can help negate the hits allowed, the walks, and things like that. Really need to rack up the strikeouts. Yeah, Pivetta, not only just getting out of Fenway, just getting out of the AL East, right? Not having to deal with the AL East and going out to the NL West. Outside of the Dodgers, really just a favorable ballpark shift for him. Your highest rostered starting pitcher today is Bryce Miller. You have Bryce Miller and Jacob deGrom 1-2. Miller at home against LA. Last year, Miller had elite home numbers. This year, he's kind of been a middling pitcher. That the $8,200 price tag, I think when everybody's trying to jam in the Atlanta Braves today, is where the appeal is when you have deGrom and Miller under $9,000 today.
Yeah, the price tag for deGrom, if we knew that this was the deGrom of old, he would easily be the highest rostered pitcher on the slate. He still may end up the highest rostered pitcher on the slate. I don't think that people understand truly yet how good the Athletics offense is. So I am a little bit hesitant on deGrom here at high ownership. He has the potential to absolutely break the slate at this price. There's no doubt about that. The fact that he just faced the Athletics as well is a negative, in my opinion, on the matchup. I don't like seeing pitchers face the same team back to back. Historically, strikeout rate goes down a little bit in that second start.
They have the timing up a little bit better on him. So
yeah. It makes sense, and some of the data bears that out. They don't necessarily give up more runs or anything, but the strikeouts just go down a little bit. So the upside I'm concerned about. Oakland or the Athletics rather have not struck out this season at all. They're near the league leaders in strikeout rate. So I think it's too cheap of a price for deGrom. Given the ownership factored into that, I don't know that I necessarily need to be overweight on him. Given the pitchers we talked about above him, all 4 of them I think are really strong. And then Bryce Miller is just in a fantastic spot as well. He has struggled a little bit this season. The walks in particular with him as well have been a problem.
Yeah.
Not an elite strikeout guy, but this is an elite matchup. The Angels walk at the lowest rate in the entire league, which helps his command problems that he's dealt with to begin the season. And then they strike out at the second highest rate. So we're talking about one of the best matchups in baseball here. An elite pitcher's park as well, his home park there in Seattle. I have a hard time poking holes in Bryce Miller, even though he hasn't been the elite guy maybe that we saw at times last year.
I like that they've let him get the 100 pitches in 2 of the last 3, right? Because if he does cruise, the idea would be like they're going to let him pitch deep into this game. He just needs to avoid sort of the long innings and the pitch count and the walks there, like you mentioned. So, one of the more, I guess, like debatable plays that Grandi and I had this morning was Taj Bradley. He gives up a lot of home runs. He has a fly ball problem, has a high strikeout upside play. His numbers overall, like on the surface here, don't look great, but you look at the peripheral numbers, they're obviously much better. And then you kind of look at who he's had to face, right? Obviously the Rockies are an easy spot, but Texas, Atlanta, New York, Arizona, that's a kind of a gauntlet here. Now you're going up against a Kansas City offense that has not been, great outside of maybe like a weekend series that they just had against Miami. Do we think that Taj at 8K is a nice tournament play today?
I think Taj at 8K is a fantastic tournament play, especially when we factor in Bryce Miller right there in the same price range is going to be very heavily owned. I wish I liked the matchup a little bit better.
Sure.
Kansas City is not an offense that I'm afraid of. And Taj, like you said, has faced really tough opponents here recently. Kansas City just doesn't strike out a ton.
Yeah.
That being said, Taj does have elite stuff. We've seen him over 30% with the strikeouts at times. He had a stretch last season where he looked absolutely elite for 7 or 8 starts, something like that. Hasn't quite been to that level. I believe in the talent here. So the fact that he is coming in half the ownership of Miller, maybe even less than that, has me well overweight the field on Taj Bradley.
Yeah.
I'm not as concerned about the recent performance just because of those matchups that you mentioned. There's some really good offenses sprinkled in there.
Yeah, Kansas City this year, you're right on the strikeout rate, just a 20% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. But 225 batting average against right-handed pitching is 26th in baseball. Isolated power number against right-handed pitching is 29th in baseball, just a 106 ISO. And they are 29th in WOBA against right-handed pitching. The only team worse than them in ISO and WOBA against righties is Toronto. Obviously, Garrett Crochet being a lefty, but maybe future slates for Boston coming up. We might be looking at some of their pitching. When we see tomorrow's slate or something like that. But I like Taj here just because of how poor Kansas City's been. And maybe he gets 5 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts in the spot just because he has that strikeout potential. But like the other pitchers we discussed, walks, like if he can cut down on the free passes, allow him to get a little bit deeper into these games. But, Bryce Miller, for his struggles this year, being as highly rostered as he is, I mean, you have games of 5, 6, and 10 fantasy points. That's not great for 40% of the field. And if you're going to fade them, that could give you a leverage play here. You mentioned there's some other values that you have your eye on. Where else are we looking at today?
Yeah, one guy in particular, like I said, if I like the matchup more for Taj, I would just shove all in on him and he'd be my huge stand of the day. The Bryce Miller ownership I mentioned is not loving and the Jacob deGrom ownership not loving. So I am looking for a cheaper pivot. And there's not many great options down here, but one name just jumped off the page when I looked at stats and started digging in on the slate. Ryan Gusto has been incredible for the Astros. And then I was like, well, this can't be real. Not really a prospect, moved around from the bullpen to the rotation.
Sure.
Like, is what he's doing so far this season sustainable? And digging into all the numbers, like there's some incredible stuff here. The strikeout rate is at 25.5%, which is well above average. Digging into the underlying stuff, the swinging strikes are 14.2%, which tells me that the 25% is not only real, but there's potential for more strikeouts here. I love swinging strike rate. It typically correlates really well with actual strikeouts. It's typically about a 2 times multiplier. So like if you take his 14% swinging strikes and thinks he can sustain that, this could be a 28% strikeout pitcher. He gets the Detroit Tigers, who, while there's a lot of young improving bats on this roster, they're not quite an elite offense just yet. They're still below average. They still strike out a ton.
So they have a lot of guys at high strikeout rates in that lineup.
Yes, exactly. So I think the potential for Gusto to match Bradley and Miller at this spot and even compete with deGrom is there. I really liked what I saw when I dug in on Gusto.
Yeah, Gusto only around 10% tonight. So not a lot of people going in that direction when 38% of the field is playing a Miller, 30+% playing deGrom today. They're kind of living in that mid-range. So getting a Gusto, like you said, if you think those numbers sort of come through tonight, certainly the potential to have a nice upside play. 7th most highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching this year for Detroit. The 140 ISO, 318 WOBA are kind of middling. But like I said, they have guys like Torkelson and Riley Green and Carpenter that have some decent strikeout rates in the middle of that lineup. Colt Keith, a guy that they put in the middle lineup that's not hitting at all. He's just taking walks. So can't hurt Gusto there. So I like that shout. Anything else for you?
I think that covers that's the extent of my pool today. As I said, it's a really strong top end. I think the 2 8K guys are really strong, and then I'm just going to Gusto if I'm looking cheaper than that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there as well today. Going on over to the catcher position, a spot where we haven't generally looked to spend up, but there are obviously catchers in cores like Sean Murphy and Hunter Goodman if you wanted to get some options for us there. I think Will Smith is too cheap at $3,900, and I said this on the preview show this morning. Obviously, Coors being on this slate and some high-end pitching, that if nobody was going to play the Dodgers today, like I would have interest in using Dodgers as like an alt stack in some lineups. Ohtani's the only one over 10%. He's got the dual positional eligibility. Nobody else is over 5% right now. Sandy Alcantara has not looked good. He's still throwing hard, but he's walking a lot of guys. He's giving up a lot of runs. Dodgers are at home where they can hit some home runs in that ballpark. And you're giving me Will Smith at $3,900. Like I really, really like that play for him. I know there are guys below him that are a bit more popular right now. Augustin Ramirez, Francisco Alvarez returned to the lineup and looked good. Caro's hitting cleanup, though. We're going to go Peralta, but getting some Dodgers exposure today at low ownership feels nice to me.
I'm completely with you on the Dodgers. An elite offense that you can just stack up any day, no matter the matchup. But when you look at Sandy Alcantara's numbers so far this season, it's pretty disgusting. The walks are out of control, like you said. Yeah. The strikeouts are way, way down as well. He's never been an elite strikeout guy, but they're like non-existent at this point. Will Smith is way too cheap, and the Dodgers are one of my favorite offenses on the entire slate. Alcantara's like luck numbers that you look at, he's been he only has like a 235 BABIP as well. So like he's going to give up even more hits than he has. He has been unlucky with, I believe it was home run to fly ball, but like that BABIP is coming up. He's been around 270 for his career, so it's not sustainable. So I don't think Alcantara is quite right, and I really think the Dodgers can put.
And once you get through Alcantara, then you get the Miami bullpen, which is obviously something that you can take advantage of as well. So I said it on the previous show. I'm like, if I go and look at the Dodgers and no one's playing them, like I'm going to probably play the Dodgers, and here we are. No one's playing them. So where else are you looking at catcher today?
Yeah, up top, Murphy and Raleigh are both incredible. Murphy and Coors, obviously. Cal Raleigh gets a low strikeout pitcher. We know he has massive power, so certainly don't mind going there. In the mid-range, strong options with William Contreras. Difficult situation against the White Sox with the opener. I never like attacking that type of situation, but these are not good pitchers. Tyler Gilbert is scheduled to open. He's a lefty. They're probably going to follow him with a righty and Bryce Wilson. But Contreras has had weird splits the last couple of years anyway, so no qualms going there. He's been an elite hitter the last 2 seasons. Hunter Goodman and Coors, certainly don't mind that. Smith Shawver has issues with walks, so I do like some Rockies today.
Sure.
Love your Will Smith.
And Goodman's got power, obviously, so you got him in the cleanup spot.
Yep, absolutely. Love the lineup spot. Another guy with a great lineup spot, Jonah Heim, is hitting cleanup for the Rangers today.
Yeah.
The rest of the Rangers are really, really cheap as well. They're facing a low strikeout lefty in Jacob Lopez for the Athletics, who I don't have any faith that can keep this. Even though it's without Seager, this lineup is not imposing. No. But man, Lopez, I don't think he's going to generate any strikeouts. He only throws about 90 miles an hour. He does have some good off-speed stuff, but I have interest in the Rangers today. I think they can put some balls in play. So
Higashioka hitting third at $2,700 too. If you just wanted to go the other catcher in that spot, so.
Good call.
I don't mind the punt for Freddie Fermin. I think Freddie Fermin's like a little bit of an underrated offensive player. I know the numbers aren't bearing that out this year. The last year they were pretty good, and he has had a little bit of a stretch here where if you just get one of these 1-for-3 games at $2,000, and we mentioned Taj Bradley has some problems with walks, has some problems at home runs. They're back in George Steinbrenner Field, so you have that warm Florida weather tonight. If you're just looking to punt today, I don't mind Furman as an option for us.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You can always punt catcher. I mean, it's there is some elite potential at the position, but it's never a bad strategy to punt catcher.
I agree. Angels, they're going with yet another leadoff hitter. Nato finally moved up to the top spot today. Is slowly working his way there. So nice. I got that for the Angels in their matchup against Miller. First base. Where are we looking to kick things off here?
Gonna kick it off with your Dodgers that you talked about because I'm in love with them as well. Ohtani and Freeman both look amazing. You can play Ohtani in the outfield obviously as well if you want both of them. Both have been excellent. Ohtani down a little bit from maybe where we expected. Freeman's been really good, but love this spot for the Dodgers against a pitcher who is not quite right. Obviously, Matt Olson is a lead as well in Coors Field against German Marquez, who's had his massive struggles.
Might be German Marquez's like last start here, you know.
Yeah, it's been a rough go for him. Another guy who's walking almost as many batters as he's striking out. So great spot for the Braves and Matt Olson. Pete Alonso's never a bad option. Gets the lefty today. I think the Mets are going underlooked. They've been an offense that's absolutely on fire. So
19 runs yesterday.
Yeah, love Alonso in tournaments. Let's see. Probably looking down the salary range a little bit after that. Toglia's in Coors, has some power. Don't mind him. Rhys Hoskins hasn't been a great go for him in Milwaukee. He gets that opener situation for the White Sox as well.
Yeah.
That White Sox bullpen is just an attackable piece at this point.
Dodgers also going to a bullpen game today. I know Matt Mervis's batting average is starting to come back down, but the power's there. Got him at 37. Christian Walker homered yesterday. I like Reese Olson, but if you think Houston's offense can come around, then Tristan Casas is 34 against Bowden Francis. Another guy that we like the talent of Francis, but he hasn't fully, the numbers still don't really look great for him so far this year.
Got to figure out a way to cut down the strikeouts because the power, the bat speed is elite. He's going to hit for power if he can make some contact.
Yep, agreed. Any other value for you at first?
Yandy Diaz, I don't mind. Lorenzen, a low strikeout pitcher. Diaz is cheap near the top of the order. Jake Berger, the other guy I definitely want to mention. Cheap Rangers, big time power from Berger. Low strikeout lefty on the other side. I'd be chasing power from Berger today.
I would agree with you. Second base position where I didn't really find there to be a ton of great plays. You can obviously spend up if you want. Did you have a go-to for this one today?
Does Polanco have?
No, he's third
base. Third base shortstop. Yeah. I was. We're going to talk about him, but unfortunately not second base eligible. I'm with Albies is one of my least favorite Braves. Definitely prefer him against lefties. It's Coors Field. I'm not going to tell you not to play him. The price for his upside is, he does have the upside today because of Coors, but against the righty, I'm not in love with it. Bregman is fine. Again, just a little bit pricey for what I want to do on this slate. So I'm trying to find some cheaper options. Christian Campbell is a guy that I kind of highlighted or put him in my player pool at least. I like the talent there. I'm not scared of Francis. The power can get to him a little bit, so don't mind some Christian Campbell. Acuna is a cheap guy that I have a decent amount of. I mentioned this Mets offense and how good they have been. Luis Angel Acuna is certainly a name that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I agree. He's got some speed. Obviously he's been hitting the ball a little bit better. So good punt play at 37. Tawa had the little power surge, obviously coming back down a little bit, but this Mets, the weather, right? We didn't really talk much about the weather, but really good weather, hitting weather in New York today, both New York games. The Mets matchup that he got at $3,500 for Tawa there.
Marcus Semien needs to be mentioned. It's been a rough go for Marcus Semien, but the price is now adjusted to where he doesn't need to be the guy that we used to know. We're okay with him kind of being on the back. Yeah, he really does. I mentioned in cheap Rangers, he is cheap.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't think Massey's a bad play today either. Again, we don't mind Taj in tournaments and the strikeout upside, and we've mentioned certainly how bad the Royals have been in general this year. Massey has a little bit of power. He's in the middle of that lineup. At $2,700, if you think you're playing more of that ballpark, again, that ballpark in Tampa Bay is built to mimic Yankee Stadium, right? So lefty bat in that ballpark with the Tampa Bay Heat, the Florida Heat, maybe easier balls to fly out to right field. Maybe Massey can poke one off Bradley there.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Bradley does have a higher strikeout rate to lefties, worth noting, but he does surrender power, so certainly don't hate that.
Agreed. Anything else?
That covers it.
No Tawa, I feel attacked. I mentioned Tawa.
That's a Grande favorite, isn't it? Grande is always loving him some Tawa.
Grande's always, third base. Again, Austin Riley up at the top here, $5,900 against Marquez. Polanco, as you wanted to highlight, though, 43. Again, not able to hit from the right side due to the injury that he's dealing with. Maybe that should just be a permanent thing for him because only hitting from the left side is doing him wonders at the moment.
Yeah, we talk about small samples and early season stuff, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But when you dig in and you start to see elite StatCast and elite hard hit rate and elite barrel rate, and everything is lining up with his top line numbers, it's hard to discredit what he has done. I don't know where this came from. It looked like he was on his way out of the league last season. Maybe he was playing hurt. I don't know. But all I know is he is absolutely smoking the baseball right now. Barrel rate's over 16%. Hard hits are almost 55%. Like, none of this is fake up to this point. I don't know that it's sustainable and that it's going to continue, but it's not like he's getting lucky. He is absolutely murdering the baseball right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he's had, he's had runs throughout his career when he's in Minnesota where, he looked good, but he's another one that it's like, he's a switch hitter that never really hit well from the other side of the plate. And you're like, why are you even doing it? Like, your numbers look drastically worse because you're hitting 240 from the right side, just stay as lefty. And obviously right now, smoking everything there. So great spot for him against Kahanowitz at $4,300. Again, if you wanted to spend up on any of these guys, you certainly can. Devers had homers in back-to-back games. Maybe he's finally coming around. We know Suarez had the 4-homer game, historically better against lefties. Work our way down. You mentioned liking Texas. I don't know if Lopez is long for this game, but Josh Young against a lefty has been the right split for him. And then Vientos starting to come alive. He too gets a lefty in Erod, both of them at $3,500.
Yep, love the two guys at the top. Riley's up there with top hitters on the slate. Devers has been hot, and Francis has had his struggles this year, so love both of those shout-outs. Vientos, I'm really interested in, as well as Josh Young, two guys that are pretty cheap for what they bring to the table. Two power bats, both have the platoon advantage against a lefty today, so I think going cheap as well. It's a pretty loaded position at third, which is not always the case. One other name, Max Muncy, is really cheap. He's kind of in that Marcus Semien stage where he's on the back half of his career, has really struggled this season. But man, this is a guy that we used to pay $5,000 for and be happy to do it. So there's still big time power. He's swinging and missing way too much, as he has the last couple of seasons. But he is cheap and has power.
I also like Williamson here. Been really good at the bottom of their lineup. If you want to do a little bit of a wraparound stack, can do that against Kahanowitz there. Jace Young's 23, but you're kind of in on Gusto. That's probably it at third base today.
Chad Durbin, one other name. I like the Brewers a good amount today. We've mentioned a couple of them already, but cheap guy, decent prospect.
Yeah, Caleb Durbin, fast guy.
Yep.
Shortstop. I said on the preview show this morning, shortstop not as loaded as usually is, given sort of the 6:40 start times, not on this main slate. You still have Bobby Witt. Obviously, you have a struggling Mookie Betts, but maybe a good spot to get back to him. Lindor went 0-for-3 in a game where his team scored 19 runs. So maybe he wants to get his fill today against a lefty. What are your thoughts on the top three guys there?
Yeah, I don't think any of them are must plays by any means. Betts is my favorite, even though he struggled, because we've talked about Alcantara's struggles as well. I do think Witt profiles pretty well against Bradley, who does have some reverse split tendency. Mentioned the higher strikeout rate to lefties. So I don't mind Witt, even though I really like Taj Bradley today. Bobby Witt is always playable. Lindor against the lefty, certainly. Don't mind Trevor Story as well. He's had a nice season so far. And Bowden Francis, I know he was good last year, but has not quite been as good this season.
Yeah, 5 homers and 6 stolen bases, 2 for Story. So able to get you the fantasy points in multiple ways. Excuse me. Polanco, as you mentioned, at 43. Nato's leading off today, which is certainly appealing. He's been really, really good. Power and speed out of Nato since coming back into their lineup. Josh Smith is hitting second. I know this is currently a lefty, but again, I don't think Lopez is long for this game, so I'm happy to go there. And then Crawford for me was the plug and play. We discussed this on the preview show. He goes through stretches where he just gets super hot, and right now that's that 395 average, 1,000 OPS, 11 RBI in his last 10 games, a little pop, a stolen base. I've just kind of plugged him and moved on because again, I wasn't really in love with this position today.
Yeah, I like Crawford a good amount as well. Don't love that he's down at the bottom of the order, but there's nothing else bad to say about him against Kohanowicz, who we talked about the low strikeouts. If you're looking for another name down there, Joey Ortiz is cheap for the Brewers, a spot that I like a lot today, but I do prefer Crawford with you.
Sure. And that outfield, again, we usually just say kind of build your stack, find the right guy. There probably isn't anybody that I wouldn't play. Tatis is maybe the worst of the matchups against Webb of that top group. Rooker gets DeGrom, but, from like 5K up, they're pretty much all in play today.
Yeah, always loaded at the top of the outfield position, and really just throughout the outfield position. Otani is my clear favorite if you're not playing him at first. Carroll's lefty. Tatis gets the ground ball pitcher. Rooker, who knows what DeGrom is at this point, but always a scary matchup. We get to Ozuna, who's in Coors, obviously. Just an elite option, has been an elite hitter for several seasons now. Not as in it on Trout against Miller or Soto, lefty. Not that I'm scared of Eduardo Rodriguez, but
Yeah.
I think there's better spots today. Jarren Duran and Jackson Chourio right below him, two guys that I really like today. I'm picking on Francis a little bit today with these Red Sox bats.
Sure.
I've mentioned several of them. And Chourio has been awesome. Just going back to even the second half of last season, super talented, elite prospect who really broke out in the second half of last season, has not slowed down one bit to start this year. This kid is on the way to being one of the best hitters in baseball, in my opinion.
100%. I was a fortunate fantasy manager last year. Someone dropped Jackson Chourio in my league. I scooped him up and just reaped all the benefits after they took all the first half struggles. So that was a nice outcome. Wyatt Langford leading off 5K is him. Also super elite prospect. Was at one point the odds favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. Ran into some injuries, slumped down the stretch, and obviously fell back there. But big second year for him. You mentioned going Boston. Willie Abreu hitting fifth. Randy Arozarena mentions Warren here hitting cleanup today if you like that. Obviously, you have your Atlanta plays today. Ozuna, Harris, Verdugo, and Eli White, all options for us in the outfield.
Atlanta's going to be owned, and that's as they should be. Herman Marquez has been trash.
Yes.
Atlanta also has this nice mix where you can fit in a cheap guy like Eli White, who's actually been really good, and then spend up for some of the elite guys as well. And it's a really nice looking stack, a strong looking lineup. So Eli White is one of my favorite cheap guys, obviously going to be one of the field's favorite cheap guys as well. Love the Langford shout out. I mentioned Texas being cheap. Langford's not, but he has elite upside. Love the matchup against the lefty for him. Willie Abreu, a name you shouted out as well that I really like, has been hitting the ball really hard. Don't mind the matchup for him. I have interest in Rockies today, which is always scary. It's a terrible offense, but you can't discount the ballpark. Jordan Beck has done some nice things since getting called up. Brenton Doyle has a little bit of power, a lot of speed.
Yeah.
So the Rockies are on my radar. We didn't mention Ryan McMahon at third. He's in play for this as well. He's had his struggles over the past couple seasons, but there's still some talent there. I don't mind Rockies today.
When it comes to ownership, the top four guys are all in that game. It's Verdugo, Ozuna, Doyle, Beck. So
everybody's right Coors, there. It makes sense. So if you want to fade that in tournaments, I certainly don't mind it. There's tons of options in the outfield. So
Chandler Simpson's getting ownership as well today, which I think is a little interesting. Obviously, he's been really good. We know the speed's there, but Lorenzen against lefties has kind of been the spot to avoid. He had that blip against the Tigers a few starts back where all the lefties actually were the ones to do the damage against him. But on a whole, lefties don't get much of anything against him. Are you interested in the Simpson chalk today?
He can get there in different ways. He's one of the fastest guys on the planet. So I don't love that he's getting ownership, but I wouldn't tell you can't play him just because he can get there with speed as well as if he gets on base, he's probably stealing a base.
That's his job, right? Get on first, go to second.
Yeah. A couple other cheap names that I really like. Adolis Garcia, we've mentioned Texas a couple of times. It's been a rough go for him, but gets the lefty, soft tosser, and then a lot of the Oakland bullpen more than likely. Kerry Carpenter's been really good. He's leading off today, so I like gusto. I'm going to have a ton of gusto, but Carpenter is the guy that scares me the most in that lineup probably. Riley Green's fine too if you want to go there. Sure. But Carpenter's the guy that's hot if you want to say that. Luke Raley, I like the Mariners a ton today against a low strikeout pitcher. He's got big power. Strikeout shouldn't be a concern for him today, so don't mind going there. There was one, Michael Conforto. We talked about Dodgers.
Yeah.
Just anybody in this lineup, if Alcantara isn't right, I'm going to have some interest in. So Conforto hasn't been great, but I'm interested today.
Sure. Again, you can play Smith down here. Where was one I wanted to call out?
Grichuk against the lefty, another one I have on my list, has been solid throughout his career against lefties.
Drew Waters is hitting 7th, a little power speed in that lineup. Pajes was the one I wanted to look at.
Yeah.
You mentioned Conforto, obviously. Pajes starting to come around. Basically didn't hit a lick to open the year. The last 10 games, basically, he's kind of kicked it up. Had a really good series against the Pirates, which included this game right here is against Paul Skeens. Had 2 doubles and 3 hits in that game. Obviously, not all of the hits came off Skeens, but some of them did. So you want to keep that one running. He stole bases in 2 of the last 3, homered in the 1 game he didn't. So Andy Pajes solely coming around and looking pretty good at $3,200 if you're just looking for some more cheap options. I want to quickly just call back on the Red Sox because the more we talked about it, the more I'm also a Red Sox fan. So it's like, you know what? Let's look at the Bowden Francis numbers. Lefties against Bowden Francis this year, 545 slug, 360 WOBA allowed to left-handed hitters, 2.8 homers per 9. Last year against lefties was 1.6 homers per 9 allowed. Lefties are doing a lot of damage against him. And we mentioned Duran at the top, Devers starting to heat up, Willie Abreu, obviously, from the left side of the plate there. So could have a little lefty stack of Boston today in this Bowden Francis matchup.
Love that. I am also in love with the Red Sox today.
Our guy Howard Bender wants to know, do we want Farmer or Semien today?
Boy, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, your
obviously
Coors lineup or Semien.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in years past it's pretty easily been Semien, but the struggles so far this season, I still think it's Semien for me, but it is closer than those names suggest it should be.
Yeah, I mean, he's using Doyle and Beck already, along with Young and Garcia. So you get your Texas stack or your core stack today. I guess I would go Texas. They're the lower owned stack today, Howard. No one's playing them, so yeah, I think I go Semien if I had to pick one. Semien's the higher roster of the two, but I think Semien's where I would go.
Yep, so. I'm with you. I'd be surprised, given Coors, if Farmer isn't right there even with what is the discrepancy that we have there? And
50% difference in ownership. Semien is 15%, Farmer's 7.5.
Yeah. Given obviously that information, I'd go Farmer.
Of the lineup, one guy hitting at the bottom of the lineup. So
yeah, that's true. Given that information, I would lean into ownership there and go Farmer.
Okay.
It's that close. Like
it is.
I prefer Semien in a vacuum, but ownership matters a ton. Like,
yep. And I mean, listen, if you're talking like you said a vacuum, you put those two names on paper. You're like Marcus Semien's like a 30-20 guy in his career. What has Kyle Farmer ever done? It's like, well, Semien hasn't hit in a year and a half. So you know what's the chances there? So. Polanco at short. I do like this. He's giving us his lineup. Bradley, Miller, Rowley, Olsen, Farmer, or Semien, Young, Beck, Doyle, Garcia. 2 mid-tier options today for Howard. Not going any of the top spends. That's fine.
I don't mind that. I think both of those guys have plenty of upside.
Spending up for Kyle Rowley today is a one-off.
Especially with Sean Murphy and Coors. I love that.
Yeah, works for me. All right, let's get a lineup build going. Let's see where we're at with it here. Where did we settle in? What's your number one pitcher today?
Number one, I mean, Freddie Peralta's matchup is hard to ignore. If I had to just pick one pitcher who I think can go nuts, it's Freddie Peralta. Price considered, I'd really like Bryce Miller and Taj Bradley, and I'm going to have probably way more Ryan Gusto than I was going to say.
We could go a Peralta Gusto here.
I think that'll be pretty unique. I think a lot of people are going to go to the 8K range for their second pitcher. So
right, because you're getting chalky with Peralta obviously, but 10% Gusto is your tournament leverage here. And if he does anything to outperform the mid tier, like we talked about with all the ownership going to Miller, like you have the advantage there. So I'm good with that. And we got 4K to play. I mean, there's plenty of options for us here. You know, if we just do some of the value we've talked about, Eli White in the outfield, my computer is lagging. $3,300 for him.
JP Crawford was a guy that you loved.
Yeah, Crawford at short. Yeah, Bender, what you got at shortstop, Bender? Where's this shortstop? Are you not playing JP Crawford today, Howard? I would play JP Crawford if you're playing some. Are you playing Polanco at short? Might be playing Polanco. Sure, he's playing.
Yeah, I mean, Polanco is one of my favorite hitters. I just was blown away by the numbers that I saw from
Yeah.
Polanco. So could not argue against Polanco.
No, I was seeing what Howard's lineup was built like. All right, so we got $4,400. All right, so what do we want to do? Do we want to build a contrarian lineup? We can go and get some Dodgers. Do we want to go with Chalky and go Braves? What do you want to do here?
I think with Gusto in there, we can go Braves if we want. We don't have to full stack them, but I think probably 3 Braves is a good amount at least.
Do you triple the outfield? Go like a White, Verdugo, and Ozuna? Or do you go White, Verdugo, and like Riley or Olsen?
Let's go Riley and give us a little bit more flexibility with that outfield spot.
All right. Well, if we do Riley, we can't play Polanco. So do you want to play Polanco?
Good point. We could go Olsen and Polanco instead.
Okay, go Olsen and Polanco. $4,200 second base. Again, I didn't love second base.
Let's see here.
It was like sort of the punt play. I think we did.
Yeah, either you have to overspend or basically punt it. And Acuna is a guy I'm doing that a ton with. Trying to think. Massey's a guy you called out that I don't mind. We don't have Bradley in this lineup.
Yeah. I mean, if we did this, if we did WD Will Smith at 39, Olsen, Acuna, Polanco, Crawford, White, Verdugo, that gives us $5K a one-off. We could do a one-off Wyatt. We get 2 stack with Olsen and Teoscar against Alcantara. Where was this? I mean, it was 54. We could get
one of my favorite hitters on the slate. We could add to the Brave stack with Michael Harris there.
Would you rather Harris or Ozuna? We could do Smith and Harris, or Ozuna and Alvarez, do a 6-7 Alvarez Acuna stack.
Yeah, I like the correlation on that second one.
Right. So we got Alvarez Acuna. We got a 4-man Olsen, White, Verdugo, Ozuna, of course, field stack. And then 2-7 doesn't really correlate, but they're 2 guys we like, So.
Yeah, those are price plays more than a correlation, I would say.
And that's it. All right. Peralta, Gusto, Alvarez, Olsen, Acuna, Polanco, Crawford, White, Verdugo, and Ozuna. Getting chalky with Atlanta, but we got some contrarian plays mixed in there as well, especially with Gusto at $7,200. Go check out Keith's Playbook. It's live on Fantasy Alarm right now. You can get in that Discord. You get our 7-day free trial to check that out as well. FantasyAlarm.com/win. Appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll have the preview show out tonight. We'll catch you later.